Welcome to our Where's the Beef video series. I'm Tiffany Lashman, Extension Agricultural Law Specialist with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension. We're excited to bring you this series of videos related to direct beef sales. Funding for this project was provided by the Southern Risk Management Education Center. As part of that funding, we really would appreciate you taking the time to fill out our evaluation. We'll have a link to the evaluation in the notes below. We'll also have a link and a QR code available at the beginning, middle, and end of each video. In order to fill out our grant reports and complete our grant funding, we really need results from these evaluations. So we are pleading with you, if you watch these videos, please take time to fill out the very quick, very short evaluation. Thank you, and we hope you enjoy our Where's the Beef video series.
I'm Jon Taggert with Burgundy Pasture Meats. My son Ben. I've been ranching for longer than I care to admit, but we started Burgundy grass-fed beef operation in 1999. You might ask why? Well, I was ranching for a long time before we started this business, and in an effort to actually make a decent living in the cattle business, we went into the grass-fed meat business. It was a long, hard road. That's been, 20-something years ago now. And then Ben recently came into the business when he graduated from Tarleton and then went to ranch management at TCU and has been in operation since. Where we go from here is more up to him than it is to me. Just I'm on my way out and he can have it here pretty soon.
I know you said you had to ship cattle the other day. How do y'all normally sell your cattle? I mean, you just ship them straight to your slaughter facility? Is that how they go?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so we ship cattle every week. They go to the slaughter facility, and then we do all the breakdown at our plant, and then the cuts go up to our retail stores for our direct retail sales.
For your slaughter facility, how did you find your original? Are you still with the original facility that you used when you started, or have you changed?
We own it.
You own it. So did you...
Let me give you a little history on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, so there is a story there.
Yeah, there's a story there because processing is a challenge. Mm-hmm. And it was a challenge for us when we first started. And part of the problem is you're doing very few. You're not doing the volume that we do now. So you've got logistics to get to a processing facility, but then you also, depending on what you're going to do with the meat, if you're going to ship across state lines, it has to be a USDA inspected facility. But the challenges begin on the quality of the work. More importantly, I'm going to say of cutting the meat and packaging the meat is the presentation and the retail presentation and the quality of the packaging, and we had a lot of issues with that. And to be honest with you, I got so frustrated about it that I just threw my hands up and went home and told his mom we were going to build our own processing plant, and we did. Kind of stuck our neck out there, but it turned out that was probably the best decision we ever made. Now, am I advising somebody to go out and build a processing plant? Absolutely not. Since the pandemic and the difficulty in small cottage producers procuring processing, there's been a lot of small plants built, a lot of inspected facilities built, so there's a lot more options out there now. As far as putting in your own facility, the cost of labor has just gone through the roof in the last 5 years. The challenge of finding skilled meat cutters has gotten harder and harder, probably because so many plants have come online. So labor is probably the biggest issue you have, but then you've got a lot of government regulations, you got a lot of maintenance, you've got a lot of headaches. So I would not recommend going into the processing business. I'm already in it and we're not going to get out. The margins in custom processing from our point of view are not that good to really justify just being in the custom processing business. We do some custom processing, we're phasing that out, and because our goal is to do strictly our own product.
Okay, so you have other people that bring their cattle to y'all's facility right now?
Yes.
Okay. And then I know you said that y'all do like chickens and everything. You just do beef there, or you do everything there?
That facility's in Grandview, Texas, and we do all the beef, all the pork, and all the lamb there. And then we have a whole nother operation where our poultry operation is in Hillsboro, Texas, that grows and processes the chickens there.
People that come and bring their own cattle to y'all's facility to slaughter, how did they reach out to y'all? Is it like you've known them for a long time? Did they ask any specific questions when it came to that, or?
Most people just do an internet search, and then they'll call us.
Okay.
And so then, I mean, we send out our little info or little price sheet, and then schedule delivery and all that, and then just go from there.
So how much time ahead do people call? So how do people, I mean, do y'all have do they have a long window, or they have to let you know way in advance?
So we keep our board out 4 months usually, but during the pandemic we got over a year out.
Which I think that was where most people were.
Right. And we do so little of it that, so 2 head a week, usually 2 or 3 head a week of custom processing is what we're doing.
Okay.
So when we got in the pandemic and we were getting all the phone calls, once we got so far out, we just told people, sorry, we'll put your name down. And I don't know how long that list of names was. There were people calling us for calves that were 300 pounds saying, he's going to be ready in a year and a half. Can you do them? It's like, well, I'll write down your name and your number. I'm going to lose it, but
A lot happens.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and right now we're kind of caught up for the most part right now, but like he said, we're phasing out of it anyways, and so it's very, very little right now.
Yeah, if we get new customers for custom processing calling us now, we usually tell them that
We have other plants that
we'll send them somewhere else.
Yeah, we'll send them to, not necessarily recommend, but
So let's touch on marketing for a little bit. Now I know you have the storefront. When did that storefront, did you all open that right away too, or was that a little bit further down the line?
It was a lot further down the line.
Okay, so before the storefront, how did you market your product?
This was back in the early 2000s. We operated out of this ranch, this house, these barns. I mean, it was a lot of work. I mean, we had freezers, and so we went to some home and garden shows. We didn't have the money to do any mass media advertising, but I don't think it would do any good.
At that point in time, the internet and social media, that wasn't
No.
even like a thing.
No, I would say you could Google us, but we didn't have Google, so no.
Okay,
It was
so very word of mouth.
word of mouth.
Okay. As it progressed and you got the store, how has your marketing changed since then?
Well, let's back up a little bit, because for years we home delivered all in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex.
Okay.
Every Saturday. I mean, we took orders during the week, and then on Saturday we compiled all those orders, took them out, and I made a complete circle of the Metroplex every Saturday.
You personally?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
he did
17 years.
it forever, and then when I was in high school, I did it a bunch. Yeah, sisters did it.
That's awesome.
But we opened we have 3 retail stores. We have one in Fort Worth, one in Dallas, and then one at our facility in Grandview, where the processing facility is. We opened the store in Fort Worth in 2012, yeah. And that was a game changer. I mean, our volume started up. Once again, do I recommend somebody to go open their own retail store? Absolutely not. And we can get into here in a minute the challenges and the pitfalls of probably everything that I've learned the hard way.
So, but now you're using social media, you have the internet, you have all those different platforms for your marketing stuff, or is it still a lot of word of mouth and retained customers over the year?
It's a lot of word of mouth. It's a lot. I mean, we've got customers now that come in this store that I remember delivering at their house 15 years ago. I mean, we have a very loyal customer base. But then where we located the stores, both in Fort Worth and Dallas, because we had the luxury of knowing where every one of our customers lived. because I have driven to their house. I know what kind of house they live in. We had the advantage of knowing a lot more about our customers than a lot of people would. And so where we located the stores was strategic based on that. And then once we got in the neighborhoods with the stores, well, then word of mouth grew a lot quicker. Do we have social media and all that? Yes. Are we using it to, I'm old, so are we using it to our greatest advantage? No. But we have some room to it.
There's a lot of room to improve there.
Yeah, a lot.
So one of the questions is how to differentiate your project or your product. I think y'all's house-to-house delivering has like really set your business apart from all the ones that I've talked to so far. Like not many people did. You said 17 years, every Saturday. I mean, I think that shows like really something different. And then you have all that data, like you said, when you knew exactly.
Yeah, it got to be such a logistic challenge because we do Dallas one, then it got to where we do Dallas one Saturday and Fort Worth the next, and so on and so forth. But then logistically speaking, as it grew, we had to have a retail presence in the Metroplex, and then life got a lot easier in some ways and got a lot more complicated in others, because then you've got retail space, additional refrigeration, additional employees, more insurance, taxes, on and on and on. So it's growing pains, as with any business.
Educating the consumer has been something that a lot of people have talked about. Have you had to educate your consumer on like cuts of meat, like what they can cook with it, different things like that, or has your experience been that they mainly know what they want when they order from you?
We put a kitchen facility in the store in Fort Worth, and we did some cooking classes and some things like that there. That doesn't really reach a big enough audience to be any kind of a big help. So to say we do a lot of consumer education, no. Now you go back to the days when we first started, if we would have had Google and you Google grass-fed beef producers, you wouldn't have found anybody. I mean, when we started, if the people that were in the cattle business thought I was crazy and people that were in the meat business thought I was crazy. And it was really in the late 90s was the start of the organic food movement, if you will. That hadn't even taken hold. So we rode that wave for several years. So we've gotten over the years, for various reasons, a lot of free press because we were pioneers. I mean, nobody was stupid enough to do what we tried to do. And so as we kind of made our presence more known than we got a lot of free press on television, in newsprint, magazines, trade magazines, cooking magazines. And so what we couldn't afford to buy, we got like that really helped catapult us up to the next level.
Why did you decide to do grass-fed beef instead of like the normal grain finish that everybody was doing?
That's an easy decision. I mean, once again, nobody was doing grass-fed beef. Nobody. There was some all-natural. There wasn't really anybody doing organic beef at the time. Coleman All Natural was one that was there then, one of the early ones. Bradley B3R and Childress was another one. But if we were going to go in the meat business, a commodity business, I compare it a lot to Starbucks. And Charles Schultz, the guy that started Starbucks, wrote a book called Pour Your Heart Into It. And it was a complete description, if you will, of his whole marketing, how he took a commodity product, made it a higher priced specialty product, if you will. And I read that book twice. It's a good read for anybody that wants to do anything like this. To answer your question, why did we go grass-fed? There was no way we could go in the commercial meat industry and compete with the economies of scale that we were up against if we didn't find a niche.
Right.
And that was the niche.
Okay. So talking about the book that you just mentioned, it kind of is a good segue to like price setting and budgeting. So back in the beginning, like how did you determine how to set the price for your product when like you were, like you said, a pioneer in the industry?
One thing about when we're so vertically integrated, because I mean, we're going literally from pasture to plate. We have a price that we have to sell things for to make a profit. And so you kind of start there. Where can I make a living? And then you hope it sells. There's in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, there's HEB has Central Market grocery stores. Well, not just in here, but in Texas. I'm going to say the demographics of their customer are very close to ours. So I think they price shop us, and I know we price shop them to kind of see where that market is for a little higher price product, for lack of a better term. Because our customer, and I know this from delivering to their homes, talking to them over the last 25 years, our customer is higher educated, make a little more money, but then they read labels. They're nutritionally aware and concerned with what they eat. And then all the press, be it right, wrong, whatever, about antibiotics, implants, feed, any of that, and I'm not arguing what's one way or the other, but even if it's been good for us.
You use the same strategy now, I guess, as you did back then when setting your prices. I know you just mentioned you kind of look at Central Market and stuff. Has your strategy changed any?
Yeah, we just set our own.
You set your own.
We know what the market is.
How do you manage your inventory, or how did you manage it in the beginning? Like, did you have problems with it, trying to figure out storage, that kind of stuff?
In the beginning, you don't know. I mean, right here at this ranch, we put a walk-in freezer sort of in the barn. We had freezers everywhere, and we sold all frozen product, which was another thing everybody told me I couldn't do. I couldn't sell frozen product. Well, up until we opened our first retail store, all we sold was frozen product. Because, I mean, logistically speaking, there was nothing else we could do with, we had no way we could sell a chilled product. I'll let Ben address inventory control, or not controls, but inventory challenges, if you will, at this point in time.
Well, the inventory challenges that we face, it's always a revolving door. You know, things, go up and down, and we've had issues in the past where we've stacked up with ground beef. We've had restaurant deals in the past. The pandemic killed all of those. But most of our inventory problems are helped with value-added products, as far as our beef franks or hot dog, or snack sticks. We're working on salami and pepperoni and different stuff like that right now. But we've been through times where we had a lot in cold storage, and then we've had times during the pandemic to where, I mean, we dug stuff, the freezer was empty. And so now we don't, at the current time, right now in time, we don't have a bad stack up of stuff. We've gotten into some good deals with the food bank. There's a couple of food banks that we have donated to in the past when we've had some stuff stack up, and it got to a point where, let's just donate it, get it gone. And that actually evolved into a deal where the food bank was purchasing product from us. Now they also work on grants and whatnot, so it's sometimes it's really good, and then they'll it'll stop, and then they'll call back later.
Now I'm going to say, having done custom processing for people in this industry for 20 plus years. I've seen a lot of them come and I've seen a lot of them go. And a lot of them that want to do what we do. And the one thing that they fail to pay attention to is inventory. Well, there's another one, but I'll talk about that later. But your ground beef is an interesting item. It's basically your lowest price item, but it is your highest revenue item based on volume. So therein lies the trap. And they'll get some restaurant that wants to buy their steaks. And I'm going to say right now, we do very little wholesale, very little. We're direct retail. The margins aren't really there. You don't produce enough volume of steaks to be able to serve most restaurants because they'll go and order 200 ribeyes from you or 200 tenderloin fillets, and well, you're doing a few head a week. That's impractical. It doesn't work. But what people fail to pay attention to is they'll get excited because some restaurant wants to buy their steak and they'll start killing cattle, and then they'll turn around and there's a pile of ground beef behind them the size of a boxcar. The biggest challenge for us in marketing and sales is selling the entire animal nose to tail, because we got to sell that whole thing. And we've done a lot, as Ben mentioned, on value-added products, jerky to get rid of the bottom rounds, Frank's, ground beef, snack sticks, ground beef, salami, ground beef. So it all goes back to that and balancing that inventory with your sales. Then you got seasonal things you have to deal with. People don't buy chili meat in July. People don't buy roast in July. People don't buy much food in July and August because they're out of town, they're on vacations, they've got kids, they're doing stuff with, they come in late. And for every year since the day we started, our slowest sales of the month are July and August. Of the year, or July and August. And you would think, oh, it's grilling season. Well, it's 106 in Texas and they're not cooking out, and they're in Colorado or they're somewhere. So that's one thing we've learned over the years is inventory control and balancing those sales.
I've had some other producers, which are friends, that have called me over the last couple of years that are getting into direct retail, and it's that same song and dance. Hey, I've got this restaurant that wants to buy, he wants to do all this business with me, and I have always advised that unless you can sell them the whole animal, it's not going to work for you. And I actually do have one buddy that he did work out a deal with that restaurant where he did sell them the whole animal because that restaurant did the legwork on moving the extra ground beef that they did not need. That's terrible.
Well, and the other thing about restaurants is half of them go out of business every year. And so they are very fickle. Chefs in particular, and nothing against any chefs that might see this, but they'll quit you in a heartbeat. They'll find some other, what's the latest and greatest, the hottest, this, that, or the other, the fad, whatever. And then what you thought you were relying on is gone. And so I back up what Ben said. I caution doing wholesale business, and when your margins aren't there.
Just investing in restaurants altogether, right? You have some other avenues to get rid of your product. Okay.
There's nothing easy about this.
No. So hamburger ground beef was like the main question that people always ask. Like,
everyone
what do you
stacks
do
up with it.
And,
Everyone does. And value-added products is, without doing wholesale, value-added products is the best way to help it. But there's also a limit to what all you can make with ground beef.
And value-added products to find, because we don't do any cooking, and those products are all cooked. So we contract that out. Then you have to find somebody to do that for you. Then you've got the logistics, because we'll send to the company that makes our Franks, we'll send 2,000 pounds of ground beef or trim to them. So logistically speaking, for somebody on a small scale, that could be a big challenge, because you're not going to be able to find somebody for a reasonable price that's going to make you 50 pounds of snack sticks.
So in the beginning, how did you have like a software program that you used? Did you use like Excel or QuickBooks? Okay. Of course, y'all didn't ship. You said that, or did you ship, or did you deliver?
No, we ship. We started. Oh goodness! Now we're gonna have to rely on my memory. We started shipping a long time ago. I mean, before we built the stores, we were shipping. So we do. I mean, we have internet sales. Is our website as sophisticated as some of these? Absolutely not. But we ship quite a bit. And I'm going to say, this has been a mom and pop operation for a long time. We've got Ben involved now, and you are finding yourself putting out fires and you don't have the time to invest in everything as a mom and pop operation. We're getting away, or we're progressing past that now, and so that is helping a lot. And I foresee that area being where we'll make the most progress in the next 2, 3, 4 years, is in internet sales. Yeah.
What do y'all have now? Do y'all use Shopify, or do you have a different website?
Just our own.
Yeah. Our own website that's built and managed, and they order direct off there.
Okay. So for shipping, do you overnight or you 2-day? How do you normally?
We're going to shock you with this one. We ground ship almost everything. Right. So we ship UPS, everything UPS, and there's a map, and we can get product from here to Kansas almost on a next day to 2-day running it ground. So when we get in the heat of summer, and we got to ship to, Florida or California, then we'll up it to 2-day shipping. Or if the customer would like overnight shipping, we can do it. But the way our shipping works is they get online. If they spend more than $150, it's free shipping. If we need to upgrade that because there's a risk of loss of product, then we'll call the customer and say, hey, this is the situation. And we have times where there's a screw up with UPS, how all shipping companies they're all horrible in their own ways. And every now and then we'll have bad shipments, we'll lose some product, and it is what it is. And we'll credit the customer and try to ship out the same thing again, or we may call them and say, hey, we got cooler weather next week, let's go for next week. Almost all of our stuff is shipped ground.
Do you use dry ice, or do y'all use
We don't. We used to use dry ice. Back in the early days we used dry ice, and now it's just ice packs.
It's hard to find, and dry ice is also a hazardous material. So there's some shipping companies that are a little funny about dry ice, but it's gotten to be where it's impossible to find, and it's expensive. I mean, yeah, you can buy it at Walmart, but it's expensive. And so, but we buy, as everybody in the cattle business would be familiar with, the very thick styrofoam containers like they ship vaccines in. They're more expensive, but we buy those because it stays cold, and then we use ice packs and.
Do you brand your boxes or anything, or you just buy? Okay, I was just curious.
It's another thing that's gotten, since the pandemic, cardboard has gone through the roof. Shipping materials have gone through the roof. Thank you, Amazon. So yeah, I'm going to say our cost for boxes is probably quadrupled since 2020. I don't know that for a fact, but I know it's gone through the roof. And for a while there, you couldn't hardly get boxes.
Right. So then you have to adjust your prices accordingly.
For labor, materials. Our insurance has almost doubled the last 2 years. And in the food processing business, you have a lot of insurance.
That's my next question. What kind of insurance do you carry?
Everything.
Well, especially since y'all are vertically integrated.
Yeah, I mean, we have umbrella liability policies, and then it's hard when you have, it's another reason not to build your own processing facility. There's very few companies that will write insurance policies for meat processing facilities because of the risk. And there's so relatively few of them. So that insurance is extremely expensive. We run our delivery trucks, we run our ranch trucks, so we've got vehicle insurance. We've got workers' comp because we have quite a few employees now at 2 different processing facilities. So workers' comp, although knock on wood, we haven't had, I don't know if we've had like 2 workers' comp claims in years, but so, and it's unbelievable the last 2 years how much our insurance has gone up.
Do you have it all through one person, or you had to get different carriers?
We have an agent that handles all of it, but then they have to place it with different carriers that'll carry. So we have like farm and ranch policy for the ranches. Then we've got, separate policies for each facility, the poultry and the beef, and it's insurance is extremely complicated.
What has your experience been with the state permitting process, DSHS? So I guess I'm assuming back when you first started, y'all still had to get permits for everything, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
We've been USDA/FSIS Food Safety Inspection Service inspected since day one. I mean, even when we used somebody else to process our product, we used inspected facilities. We've always been federal, so we've never dealt with the state. Those 2 cross over. There's not much difference at all between the 2. Actually, we've just never had a problem with USDA, and it's everybody's tax dollars at work. It's not we don't pay for it unless it's overtime, which is a whole other subject. I actually think it's good for us because all our employees know they're there every day. They're going to be there every day. Is it a bookkeeping nightmare? Absolutely. We have more records than I care to even think about. That's strictly because for FSIS, temperature logs of the freezers, the coolers, the carcasses, the product, obviously cleanliness, product receiving, product shipping. That's another. We have HACCP plans, which if somebody has aspirations of doing this, they're going to have to get educated in HACCP and how to manage a HACCP plan, and then how to just work with a government entity, and it's a bureaucracy.
So we talked a little bit about your customers earlier. You have a lot of repeat customers. How much of your sales do you think is from like people that have just been doing business with you over the years? Would you say 75% more?
Let's back up to the pandemic.
Okay.
The pandemic was a windfall for us. I mean, Costco was out of meat. Kroger was out of meat. It got to be there when, I can tell you, the pandemic started on Friday the 13th of March of 2020. That's the day everything hit the fan. Let me put it that way. Our phone started ringing off the wall. It turned out if you did in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, if you got on Google and you started it with beef, we'd pop up first.
That means that many people were searching for y'all and pulling up your website.
Yeah.
So we had a little issue with getting people to work during that, and I had to fill in. I was working the front counter at the Fort Worth store, week 2 when things were really getting bad.
Dallas.
And I remember getting phone calls, and I'd answer the phone, and they'd say, "Do you have ground beef?" "Yes, I do." And they'd say, "Okay, I'm leaving Kroger right now, and I'll be there. Is there a limit on what I can buy?" And no, come on.
It was crazy.
Were customers, did they actually come into the store and buy it, or did y'all have it like set up outside? Or were there any regulations?
They could come into the store. We have some people that they would call and we would bring it out.
We would allow only so many people in, all that stuff that now is so stupid that we did. But what it did for us, well, let me say, if you go back to 1999 when we started, our sales have increased every single year since then, every year. The only time it was flat was 2007, 2008. Anybody that's as old as I am and remembers 2007 and 8 was a recession for all practical purposes. So it was a little flat that year. Well, then when you go up to the pandemic, what it did for us was it brought people into our stores that never would have come to our store. And they didn't care what it cost during that because they were desperate. Well, turns out they kind of liked it after they had it. And so I was asked, because our sales in 2020 and 2021 were through the roof. And fortunately, I was able to procure the cattle because my daddy told me when I was 18 years old, he said, two things will get you: not enough business and too much business. And I'll guarantee you, he sat up in his grave in 2020 and said, remember what I told you. So I scrambled, and we procured the cattle, we procured the product, and were able to meet that demand, which was way over what we've been doing. And I was asked, well, how much of that do you think you're going to retain after this is done? And it's, something kind of like we're doing right now. And for no, I just guessed. I mean, I had a feeling, but I said 25%. Turns out that's where we're at. Our sales were up when things leveled out, we were up 25%. This year we're up right at 20%, or 23 to 20. In 23 from 22, we were up 20%. So I think that's where we're at. And then now just customers we're getting just because we're there, not because of a pandemic or anything else, but it was a windfall for us. And we learned a whole lot about producing. I mean, we've been really fortunate through the years because, well, if you want to get into production, I had a lot of advice on production that I can go on about. But matter of fact, if you want to just switch gears, we can do that. When you in the beef business, raising cattle on your own property with all the way through, where you buy them, where you buy them. When we first started, we had mama cows. And I've done it all. I mean, I've run stockers, I've fed cattle in the feed yards, I've had mama cow operations, combination of both or all three at the same time. I mean, so as in the early days, we were in the stocker business, and we would just cherry pick out of the stockers what we were going to use for the grass-fed operation. And so it's always been a challenge to say, okay, how many cattle do we have in production? Because I mean, if we bring a 7-weight steer in here, it's going to be a year and a half before he's finished. I mean, on grass, slower rate of gain, and to predict what the numbers you're going to need is a challenge, to say the least. And we've been pretty good at it. I mean, other than the pandemic, when we almost ran out of product and dodged that bullet, we've been pretty good at it. And now with 25 years of data and experience, it's gotten easier, but it'll never get easy. But back to the biggest mistakes I see with people that aspire to do this is, one, it's genetics. I mean, somebody will buy the story of your product one time, but if it's no good, they won't buy it the second time. So you get them in the door with a story, you've got to have a good product to keep them coming back. And so genetics is paramount on that. The other thing is degree of finish. And you can't we look at our operation as a feedlot with grass. And I want to say right now, we are 100% forage. The only feed supplement we use is alfalfa hay. So on that, to get an animal finished is a challenge time-wise. If you have the pasture good enough and you got the calories, I don't care if they're getting it from corn or grass or whatever they're getting it from, but you have to finish that cattle to their genetic potential. And what I see the most or the biggest mistake they make on the production end is you can't have a steer that's supposed to finish at 1250 or 1300 and harvest him at 800 pounds and expect to get a product. The other problem with that is once that animal has been harvested, your fixed costs are the same. You got to get them to the facility. Once they get off that trailer, your processing costs are relatively the same. I mean, the more pounds, the higher that's going to be. Your packaging cost is the same. Your marketing cost is the same. Your retail cost is the same. Your labor is the same. So if you're only getting a 450-pound carcass out of an animal that should produce a 700-pound carcass, it doesn't take long to get in big trouble.
Have you had any differences in like taste, like flavor profile from your product over the years? I'm just curious, like I've heard that like if you have grass finished beef in different areas, it could taste a little different depending on what grasses they're.
That's true.
100% true.
Talking about.
So we have a couple different ranches that we run our cattle on, and then they always, or most of them, will be on wheat at some point in their life. But all the animals that we harvest, and go to the plant have been on this ranch here in Grandview for the final stage of their life. So it's kind of a little, mama cows are in Oklahoma, calves are weaned, they go on to wheat, they ship off of wheat, they go to our place outside of Weatherford in Lipham, they grow there for a season or however long it needs to be, and then they come here. This is the finishing ranch here. This is, I only get big cattle into this ranch, and so, because they're not here for very long. Some cattle only be here for 3 weeks before they're gone, and some may go 3 or 4 months. But
so that's how you keep I guess if everything that y'all are doing, they go to each spot every single time, that's how you're
right. But they always end here. This is it's our little saying, we got to put the Grandview flavor on them, because that was the original flavor, so we need to put the Grandview flavor on them, so they always come here.
But we found out, wheat will put a little bit of a twang on beef, in my opinion. We had an issue here, this was when he was little, this time of year in the spring, and we had a lot of mustard, wild mustard. We had, over on one side of the ranch, we have a common water lot that like 6 or 7 pastures water into, and we hadn't been there in a while. And that water lot just stays beat down, and it grew up in wild mustard. And moved the cattle over there. They hadn't been over there in the winter, and we moved them over there in the spring, and they went in there and they just mowed that stuff. And the cattle we killed that week, we just disposed of them. It was awful.
So even if they were only there for that little bit of time, it has that much effect on the flavor.
And it only takes, and once again, in my opinion, there's going to be some meat science boys that are a lot smarter than I am. They'll argue with me on this or whatever, but been doing this entirely too long. You can get rid of any of those kind of off flavors in about 2 weeks. 2 to 3 weeks.
So the fact that they come here for the last 3 weeks, that gives you like what you're talking about earlier. That's the grand.
Well, yeah, at least 3. A lot of cattle, because we harvest cattle every week, and so it's not like the commodity, the feed yard industry where they ship a whole pen at once. We're doing so many head a week. Well, we'll get a set of cattle in, and there may be 50 of them, there may be 100 of them, there may be 150 of them. Well, we don't hit that magic point where, okay, they're all done and they all die. We take them as we need them. We have what we call a finishing herd. That's our cattle that are ready to go all the time. And every week we gather those and we sort and we take off what we need for that week, then kick the rest out, which also really helps with the stress level on shipping day, because those cattle have been through the pens several times before it's their day to go, and so it's not as big a deal.
So you talked about genetics a little bit. Have you had the same breed of cattle the entire time that you've done this?
We stay Angus based.
Okay.
We've tried some others.
There was an experiment.
That was
2 experiments.
Two experiments.
Two
Both
experiments.
crashed and burned and failed. So
The end product just didn't come out as what you had hoped it would, or
For one of those experiments, yes.
yes.
So the ones Angus brought my parents to the dance. And there was when we in the drought of 2011 and 12. Shortly after that, we did a deal with the ranch where we grazed a bunch of heifers there. Shortly after, I'll talk about the Hereford deal first. So shortly after that deal, that ranch runs a bunch of Herefords. And we got into a deal with them where we were sourcing all our cattle from them. And so we went to a Hereford-based, and
Had some ear, which is a problem.
they had a little bit of
You
ear.
can really make some.
So some people would call them a Victorian Hereford, but so they didn't. That experiment didn't yield a lower quality product. The beef was fine because we did it for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
The beef was fine.
The drought was a challenge,
Yeah,
as they all are.
but the issue with that experiment was the disposition of the cattle. They came from a big country area. They only saw people twice a year. And when they saw people, there was 5 helicopters, 25 dogs, and about 4 cowboys sitting at the truck, or sitting at the pens waiting. And so those cattle, life was too short to keep running those cattle because we had to add 1.5 foot to all our pens because they could jump like deer, and it was a train wreck. And one of us was either going to get seriously hurt or killed if we continued to run those cattle.
Or I was going to just shoot some cattle.
Right. So that was one experiment. I'll say, was the beef as good as Angus? Probably not, but it wasn't a poor product. So experiment number 2 was a deal where we tried some crossbred cattle, Angus with Akaushi, to go for the higher marbling. And that experiment, luckily, was a shorter experiment, and that wasn't a disposition issue. So those cattle, we had to pay such a higher price for them. And I think the ultimate goal or the ultimate hope at the start was, we would enter a new tier of quality of product, because the higher marbling, the Akushis, it's a high marbling breed. And, but the issue we ran into with those was being on grass was they were eligible to vote by the time they were finished. And those steers were weighing 1,600 pounds before they fit our mold of what a finished grass-fed animal is.
And then that would affect your facilities.
Well, and that's then the dominoes. Every domino beyond that gets knocked over, and so we had to phase back into the Angus pretty quick after into straight Angus. And every now and then. And, we still do business with that ranch. Every now and then we'll get some of those Akushis back through here.
Quarter bloods work pretty good.
Yeah, we did. The quarter bloods were all right. But then that guy, it's not a full-time business deal with him. And so we still get them occasionally, and we like the quarter bloods. They're all right. Are they worth the extra cost? Probably not. And so now for what he says, we're back to the ones that brought us to the dance, the Angus. Straight Angus.
So it was never a quality of meat product. It was always just...
It was the Akushis, just for how long it took and for what it took and what it cost to purchase those and put them in our program, it didn't work out in the end. And then the Herefords was a disposition. It was a little lesser quality, but it was all right. We didn't have a drop in sales. Right. We didn't have any of those issues. It was just life was too short to keep running those cattle.
What is one thing that you wish you knew, starting out from the very beginning? I guess this was kind of nobody was doing this, right? So you didn't even have anybody to look to or ask questions to, or would you have done anything different? I feel like the route that you went is kind of...
The things I would have done different, I couldn't have afforded to have done. Because we started this with nothing.
So did you ranch before? Okay.
Yeah, I was avoiding starvation to start when I started this, because I was not born in a ranching family.
Okay.
Nobody I did not inherit a ranch. We lease country to this day. My dad wouldn't have known which end of a cow eats and what the other end does. I mean, how did I get into it? I grew up with some kids whose families ranched, ended up at A&M, then ended up at ranch management at TCU. I worked for my dad a couple of years out of college in another business I did not like. Told him one day I wasn't going to do that. What are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to ranch. And, well, I didn't have a ranch. I didn't have anything. I don't do a lot of smart things in my life. But anyway, he said, I don't know why you want to work that hard, but I'll help you all I can. He co-signed my first cow note, and I struggled at that for 15, 20 years. And then his mom and I decided we got to do something different, either get a job or, well, I didn't want to get a job. And so here we went. Killed 13 head in 1999. That was the first year.
We've talked about a lot. So is there any like particular thing that stands out to you, like as the hardest thing you've had to endure?
Yeah, employees.
Employees? It's not any, it's employees.
I love ranching. We got it down to a science. I mean, we give his mom and the girls that work at they think there's a cow tree out there that you just go pick however many fat cows every Wednesday that you need, and they walk in the door. We got that down. I mean, we can finish cattle on grass. We can get the product quality. I mean, no brag, just fact. We got that down. Love it. Haven't worked a day in my life on that part. But when it comes to employees, and then the more you got, the more problems you have.
Because it's just you and your wife and then Ben, right? Y'all three run everything?
No, we've got a general manager.
Okay.
His mom runs all that part up there.
You still have the 3 different retail stores that you have to run, plus all the other facilities and stuff. So you have a lot of different employees.
Yeah, we have employees in the stores, employees at the plants. No employees on the ranch. We don't need them. We can do it all. And we run 2 ranches just between the 2 of us.
What is one piece of advice that you would give to someone who's interested in starting a business like this?
Find some kind of widget to build and sell those. Import it from China.
Is there any type of niche you think that hasn't been explored yet? I feel like everybody kind of has done a little bit of everything.
I mean, if somebody just today woke up and said, we're going to do what Burgundy Pasture Meats does, the challenges are crazy. I mean, do you have a ranch? Do you have the capability of producing these cattle on grass? Are you in we have in my opinion, a geographical advantage with rainfall, climate. I mean, can you do what we do in North Dakota? There's people doing it, but I don't know how. I mean, so do you have a ranch? Do you have the cattle? Well, look at the capital required for those 2 things. Okay, you inherited a ranch. All right, fine. Where is it? Is it in
West Texas.
Andrews, Texas, or is it 30 miles south of Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex? I mean, then you go, okay, we got all that. We can produce the cattle. Then what do we do with them? Do we have the processing facilities? Do we have processing facilities that we can use that are close enough to work and do the work we need to do? Then we got to market this stuff. So, okay, let's look at processing facilities. Well, if you don't own them and you do it, okay, then that's not a big expense. You got all the expenses involved in that, insurance, everything else. Then, okay, how are we going to sell this? So then you're going to have to be a marketer. How are you going to market it? Are you going to put in your own retail store? Well, jump right in, because then you're finishing out retail space. You're either buying it, renting it, you're managing that, you're dealing with a whole nother smaller bureaucracy and city health departments and that kind of thing, which is no big deal. That's not a big obstacle. But to get this vertically integrated, it's going to take somebody that's pretty darn ambitious and pretty well funded to be able to do it I'm not going to say on the scale that we do, but with all the pieces that we do. Now, is there somewhere in between there? Yeah, like right now, ours is getting big enough that I would certainly entertain the thought of kind of a cooperator type, like the purebred people do, you know, to graze cattle for us. You know, are the economics there to do that? I don't know. We just have to sit down and see, because I mean, our land resource is we're outgrowing it. And so now we're grazing cattle on some people in Oklahoma and that kind of thing. Do we have somebody that we can have finish cattle for us? No, but part of that is probably, if we want it done right, we're going to do it ourselves. I mean, you know, they would probably get tired of us pretty quick when we look at the cattle and say, no, they're not there, or you don't have the genetics, or you don't. There's the other piece of the pie. Do you have the genetics to produce this quality of product on grass that can finish on grass and take advantage of their genetic potential? And it's complicated. Am I saying don't try this? Pretty much. But if you want to, there's nowhere you can go to school to learn it.
I think even just if you're not in it, like you said, you didn't come from a ranching background, you were brand new to it. I think someone starting out nowadays with that's just a huge obstacle to overcome at first. Like, how do you get the land? How do you find the cattle? It's interesting.
And then in the cattle business, probably more than a lot of other businesses, relationships.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I mean, from where you procure cattle, and that's been the great thing of going through TCU and the ranch management program, is the connections you make that are lifetime connections in there, that are all in the same business, one way, shape, or form. That's allowed me, not inheriting a ranch, not being able to afford to buy a ranch, to procure long-term leases. I've been on this ranch since 1995. That's unheard of in leasing a ranch. For now, I'm in the third generation on this family. But now I'm going to brag on us a little bit. That goes to our grass management and just how we take care of a place. But that we have to, because if we don't, the cattle aren't going to perform for us. And it's not. I mean, it's got to be sustainable to where we can keep pulling cattle off of this every year, every week. Since 2004, when we built the processing facility, we can brag that we've harvested cattle every week of the year, every year except one.
The Great Freeze,
The great Snowmageddon.
February of 21.
Well,
Yep, that was
the
the
water
only week.
supply in town froze, and we had no water, so we were shut down. So we didn't kill cattle that week.
I knew you said you lease everything. Is there ever a scary or a worry that, you know, whoever owns the land is going to one day just decide to sell it?
100%.
Always.
Yeah.
Always. I'm going to say the families that we lease from are, one, very concerned about their property. Is it in the immediate plans to sell? I don't think so, but that can change. People die. People, you know.
Dallas-Fort Worth keeps
Oh yeah.
coming down further.
You saw the houses in the fields
yes,
coming
I did
in.
see those.
Yep.
Yeah, they weren't there 5
3
years ago.
Yeah,
3
the first
years
one
ago.
was built
They
4 or
sold.
5 years
Yeah,
ago.
Grandview's exploding.
We'll have to cross that bridge one day, but
But we're hunting all the time.
Okay, so you're always on the...
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's the relationships. I mean, the guy we're leasing from out west, a friend of his came. Well, they were talking one day, and he said, "I think we're going to get out of the business. I want to lease it out." Well, I got the guy for you to call, so he called us, and so did that work out? No, but it will. Eventually, I think the next generation, which is not far off.
Any future plans? Ben, you want to let us know what you got up your sleeve, or is it going to be a surprise?
I don't know. There's, potential for future more retail locations, but I don't know. There's also maybe try like a franchise deal, because I have a friend in Oklahoma who wants to build a store with our name on it in Oklahoma City. I have another friend that wants to put a store in Denver with our name on it. So I don't know, maybe that's the business side. I'm not.
My advice, but like I say, this is good because he is. If he wasn't here to take this over, then what do you do with it?
Right.
I mean, do you sell it? Yeah, probably. I mean, then it's vertically integrated back to the challenges that somebody has to come into the business. That's going to be a challenge to sell it because, one, that's one reason where just by force, we're forced to get out of the mom and pops type structure because you're so limited on your skill set. I mean, or the people that have the skill sets to do ranching, processing, marketing, retailing, employee relations, payroll, payables, receivables, I mean, all bookkeeping, accounting, all that. With all these pieces, if you sold this as one piece on leased land, that would be difficult. So you would have to split out the production, which I think is a way to go, and sell this part and then be the provider of the raw product to the company that bought you. That'd be easier in poultry because poultry's a lot faster from egg to chicken, like 2 months. My advice would be to him, you do need more stores. How you go about that, I don't know. I mean, I don't care. And then up the internet game, which is a whole nother set of challenges when you get into marketing on the internet. And we tried Amazon for a while. They came to us when they were doing what they called fresh local. Once again, when you get in bed with somebody like that, it's kind of like the restaurant thing. You're at risk of them changing their mind. And they started this deal where people could order on Amazon. They would pick it up. They would give us the order by 4:30 in the afternoon. They'd pick it up at 10:30 the next morning. The next morning and deliver it. And we jumped through a bunch of hoops to accommodate them to do all that. And then they bought Whole Foods and they said, okay, we're done. And that was it. It ended maybe 3 months after it started. And Amazon does what Amazon wants.
I think we do some stuff with Uber Eats, and it's very little, but it's logistically still kind of a
And it's just
pain.
not promising for
No, not at all.
escalating sales. I think the internet but I think a retail presence. I mean, I know right now, if I was going to build 2 more stores, I know right where I'd put them. I don't have the energy or the want to do that. I would help him do it. Because I've got, I mean, having our presence in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, I mean, I've got real estate and business connections there that help on that kind of stuff.